right, the fedora-wearing Jon Hudson. Always a good time to have you back on the show. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Dave. Doing well. How about you, man?
I am pumped up, man. Pumped up.
Really? What for?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, tomorrow is a week to my birthday, and, there might be some other big news going on. I don't know, but it's always a good time.
Oh, the theater thing. That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
You know how it goes.
Yeah.
No,
I get it. No, look, we all like to perform. It's going to be fun.
All right. We got some big news tonight, my friend. Big news. We had the big panel on right before you for the first 2 hours of the show. Everybody getting pumped up for tomorrow's events.
You guys hit some really interesting topics. It was difficult at times to not be able to participate during certain portions of that. That was a good discussion.
I thought it was too. I mean, everybody brought a little bit to the table, and it's going to be amazing to see what comes out of this, John. And I know that you're going to be watching this with very open eyes. I'm going to be trying to get up early in the morning to actually watch this as well, because it starts at 6 o'clock on the West Coast here. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. I'm going to try my damnedest, though, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I debate. Honestly, I might just stay up. We'll see. But the thing is that my understanding of how these hearings work, and we see the news, but my concern is that there's two sides to this. There is the content of what is presented and who's presenting it, and then there is how that content is dealt with in person at the theater event. And the first half of producing all the content, picking who's going to speak, what they're going to say, and so forth, that's really what the people who wanted the hearing or don't want the hearing care about, right? Like, that's what they care about. The minutia of like how all those Legos get played with, that, my understanding, usually falls much further into the political side and becomes a political football. Well, no, like a bag of golf balls. For a whole bunch of people who are as what was importantly said earlier, every single one of them is up for re-election, right? So there is going to be, you got midterms, and it's there's a good chance we could see some showboating. There's a good chance we could see some people say things they don't mean to say because of tension and stress. You never know what's going to happen. My only concern, though, is that most of the stuff has already been decided. This is just a presentation.
And I think you're right on that. I really do think you're right on that. But either way, the UFO community, John, is going haywire over this, much like they did leading up to the DIA report back in June of last year. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, and another thing that should be noted is that this whole time, we've all been operating on this methodology that essentially was set by Elizondo, and that essentially that if we got to the point that we had hearings, that then things would actually start to happen. I mean, that has been dangled in front of us from the very, very, very beginning, right? And we've seen this execute in that Skyfort essentially shut themselves down when the committee meeting got scheduled, right? So you have a clear, like, this is your goal, click. What if we're wrong? What if a hearing isn't going to do it? What if the whole thing to do this one thing was actually itself flawed? And that's another thing that I worry tremendously about. But it's hard because I don't want to take anything away, because if you look at the likelihood of someone actually starting a project and completing it of any type, let alone getting a congressional hearing done, on just a very personal level, I am so just really happy for the people who were really, just sweating over this, because this is a proper thank you for all that labor, and that's important, right? It's important for people to get those thank yous.
I'm very much intrigued going in to see where this is going to go. Is there going to be somebody on one of those committees that has the the strength and the fortitude to ask some very hard questions, not questions that are going to need answering behind the scenes during the private meetings. Will someone stand up who is of an elected capacity and take that opportunity to see what they can get on a public answer? Now, the people who are answering questions from the Pentagon and the military, I look to them to deflect absolutely everything, John. I really do. They're not going to tip their hat to anything that may lead to any, shall we call it, national security being levied towards public hearings.
They'll pick from their catered buffet. They will have a catered buffet of topics to use that they will find make sense, and that's what they'll go with, and that makes sense for them. I mean, it does, and the thing is that we don't know. I mean, we have no idea. The one thing I will caution people with, though, is that I have been a part of much smaller scale, mind you, but similar style things where there's a long public presentation, and then there's like an after thing, right? And I can just say from experience, that's where everything happens, and that's the one sad part, is that is where everything happens. That's where everyone lets their guard down and actually talks, and that's where you actually see movement, and that's what we won't get to see. We'll get to see the result of it, but we won't get to see it in action.
Well, you know what? We can only hope, and we can only see where it goes, and then we have to judge our own opinions on what happens from there. And John, it's either way, it's a very exciting time. How is it going over on UFO Twitter, where a lot of these conversations take place?
Well, I mean, it's essentially one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, is that, and it's something I talked about a little bit the other night, is that I really think that most people, when you've been trying to figure out a lot of things that didn't make sense, and then you get to a point where you think that there's going to be an answer presented, even if there's just a chance there might be an answer presented, at the point the answer is presented, all of the leverage you might have for figuring it out early is gone, because now everyone knows, right? So you end up creating this like weird artificial pressure right up before the event, where you have people who suddenly start deciding that they know enough. Now they know enough that they can make the call confidently, and they'll be right. And then in 5 days, everyone will go, yay, you were smart, right? And so essentially, and then you also have people who will then, call their bet. They'll show their cards, and then that will cause other people to panic and show their stuff because they think something. And so there can be a human emotional element to it that makes it very chaotic.
Do you see it spiraling out of control?
No, not at all. But I think that it's just, oh man, it's just so frustrating. I think it's this problem. I think it has a lot more to do with human nature than anything else, right? It's that everyone desperately gets in this mindset where they want to be right, and they get this weird idea that if they were wrong this whole time, that somehow it doesn't mean anything, or they were. It's all these twisted ego things, right? That's really what it is, and ultimately, it's one of the reasons why I really want to try to encourage people to tomorrow just give us one day, just give us one day on Twitter, of just no acidity, right? No vitriol, no hate. These hate lists, like, I don't know what I'm more bothered by. Like, I don't know if I'm more bothered that someone created a hate list, that someone published a hate list, or that people are happy to be on a hate list. Well, those are like the three things that I don't even know where to go with.
Before we go any further, let's explain what came up earlier today.
Oh, yes. So as a reaction to some previous thing that was done that I haven't nailed down yet, someone created a basically an image that shows a big list of different people in the community, with their basically social media pictures, and at the top it basically said hate, hate, and the other option was um, um, no, it wasn't cult. It was two derogatory terms. Let me put it to you that way. And you know, and essentially, and that's the thing that amazes me is that you know you look at this and like even if I really dislike Elizondo, even if I think he is lying through his teeth, even if I think he is completely full of it, I would never want to be on a hate list for him. You know, like I don't know, like I when I saw this published, what I was expecting was to see a bunch of people respond saying, "Take me off, take 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 me off," and instead, what I saw was a bunch of people responding with, you know, "I made it to the list, I made it to the list. Look at me, I'm on the list." And it's like, and the thing is that I get why people don't like Elizondo, and I have no problem. They have every right not to like the man. That's fine. But this is just, it's pretty. I'll say that it is pretty. At least it's pretty.
Well,
I'll give it that.
I tend to think that a lot of what we see here is there are people out there who believe that Lou Elizondo walks on water next to Jesus Christ himself. Elizondo, who has been on this show a couple of times now, including just a couple of weeks ago. What's that?
I said you almost made me choke. I was
Why?
trying to drink something. You're talking about like people think he's walking on water. It's funny, man.
Well, true. There are people out there who
I don't think that's true anymore.
No, I'll disagree with you on that.
Okay, you might be right. You might be right.
Let me finish
Please.
my thought
Yeah,
on this.
yeah,
And the reason why is, you know what? There are people on this list that I personally do not agree with. I don't agree with their opinions. You know, Michael Huntington, who was just on our show, he's on this list. Yet, if you heard him tonight, he talked very positively about Luis Elizondo.
Yep.
Excuse me, and following through with the plans he said that he was going to. Now, I have no problem, like looking at this list, I have no problem with a lot of the people on this list because, well, we'll get to it when we return on Spaced Out Radio, the Unbiased UFO Report with the fedora-wearing Jon Hudson continues right after this. Stay tuned. Final half hour of the show is next. Let's just save our thoughts for this.
Yeah, totally. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excellent panel.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
There's a couple people on there that I don't hear from enough. That I should hear from more often. I like. I need to go make a list. Yeah, and well, yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Your kids ever get into Nerf stuff, Dave?
Oh, Nerf guns. Highly promote Nerf guns.
Do you ever get into modification?
No, I'm not that connected.
How old's your kids?
He's 8.
Okay, we'll talk offline. See if you're okay with me sending you something.
If it helps me pick them off, absolutely.
I do a lot of heavy cosplay modifications, where it really doesn't look anything like the original Nerf gun, and then I do all the normal spring upgrades and so forth, and so it's just cosplay fun stuff. So to me, it's like one of the benefits of having kids is you get to do kind of stuff like this, and technically you have an excuse.
For people asking, I will bring that list up once we get back from the break here.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, if you're able to answer this on the show, it's fine, but it's related to a different topic. Do you think that these hearings, and obviously it would depend on how they go and so forth, do you think successful hearings here would have any influence at all, in positive or negative, as to whether there be any public hearings in Canada?
No.
I didn't think so either. I was just curious.
No.
No, I think most countries would be like, you go ahead, have fun.
Yeah. The Lip Blade says, is it just me, or does John, the fantastic fedora fella, need a handlebar mustache?
Oh, hell no.
Oh, hell yes, he does. Oh, hell yes.
And please understand, if I lived in a different place, I would go with the Guy Fawkes. I think mustaches are fantastic. I just don't live in a place that's terribly friendly to mustaches. So,
well, you know what?
It's a when in Rome sort of thing.
You know what? I think that what's really nice is the Lip Blade on Saturday night waxed up his mustache, or pardon me, on was it Saturday? Was it Saturday or Thursday? Waxed up his mustache. No, it was Sunday. Just so we could go out and look for Sasquatch. It was beautiful.
It
was beautiful.
That's awesome. Oh, hey, Dave. One of the people that I think you had on, showed a picture in a book of a trail cam that took a picture of like fingers.
Yes.
How do I get that picture?
It's in Carter Bouchard's book.
That picture is something else, man. That picture is that. Hold
on.
Even for as much as I've tried to accept from you, like learning from you, like it's still that picture is hard to process. It really is.
Is it in this book or is it in the next book?
You put it in like a book, like a printed book?
Yeah, I'm trying to just quickly.
You like physically buy at a store. Oh, wow. It's crazy.
I know it's in one of these two books. Shoot, I'm going to run out of time.
We some of this stuff we can go through faster, and if we want, we can talk a little bit afterwards.
Yeah.
As long as everyone's having a good time.
5 seconds, John. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, as I lose my voice here, excuse me. If you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. The fedora-wearing Jon Hudson is here for the Unbiased UFO Report. And John, right before the break, we're talking about this list of so-called haters that was put out. As far as we know, we don't know who put it out, but it really did hit home about people who are anti-Luis Elizondo going on there. And
And it should be, well, it should be said really quickly I know this was a reflection of a list that existed somewhere else. What I don't know is if in the process of converting from that list to this visual, whether a lot of people were added from the original list. So I do not know if the people on this list were actually all on the original list, because to the point someone else made in the chat, I think you made, several of these people are not by any means haters. They're just critical thinkers that
well,
have good questions, right? I mean,
well,
a lot of
well,
these
and
people are my friends.
look, there are people on this list, and I'm not going to go through them, who are complete anti Lou Elizondo.
Sure, there
But
are. Yeah.
there are a number of good, high quality, hard
Mm-hmm.
workers on this list
Yep.
that
Yep.
that are just wanting to get some straight answers.
Yep.
I
Yep.
look at a lot of friends on this list: Joel
Yep.
Griffin Dodd,
Yep.
okay,
A lot of friends
Bruce
on that list.
Bruce
Yep.
Fenton, Michael Huntington.
Yep.
You know what? For as critical as he's been, John Greenwald just wants the straight goods
Exactly.
because he has conflicting information. Okay,
Because there
John,
is conflicting information.
absolutely. John Majorowski's a good one. Even our former host, Lynn Wallington, she has
Yeah.
questions
Well, I mean,
that need to be answered. And if people know Lynn, they know that she is, a very, very strong person for pro ufology and
when
pro getting it.
John's a teddy bear, dude. Like, most of these people are really sweet, kind, normal humans that have good, good heads, and But look, the thing is that there. The problem with this whole scenario is there are enough clues that if you have any reason to doubt, you can find a lot of reason to doubt. But
Absolutely.
unfortunately, there are just barely enough clues that if you want to believe and you want to suspend the data analysis to a degree or to a whole account, you can do that as well. And that's why we end up with this, this splintered, faction. But the thing is that for tomorrow, you know, there's going to be a lot of people watching these hearings, and there's going to be a lot of people putting out stuff live as it's happening, and there's going to be a lot of discussion going on. There's going to be a lot of discussion afterwards, and the thing is that none of that's going to happen if we're using things like this to decide who is on our side and who's on their side, right? And so, I would encourage people to maybe just for one day, just one day tomorrow, just one day, try to just cut out the playground stuff, and just try to be constructive, because otherwise we're not going to get any information out. And the thing is that, yeah, there's going to be these closed doors hearings, but look, we all know how this works, right? Something will come out, and I'd like to find out what it is, right? So
I don't even know who half these people are on this list.
well, that's the thing that's so funny, is it, like, it's an interesting list of people, to be very honest with you, because there's some people on here who I'm actually very close to, and there are a lot of people on here who I'm actually know well enough to think that this is silly, right? And then I know other people that just giggle over it, and just don't even think it's a big deal, and that's fine too, right? But to me, it's just it's like this whole thing where people will say, like, post which researchers you don't trust and why, or all these, like, all these really. And the thing is that, look, there are ways to ask that question constructively that will not produce the fighting that will be produced by the way that was asked, and it's very frustrating.
Absolutely. Well, and the problem that we have, and we've had this since the beginning of the To the Stars Academy, is the fact that there are people out there who are so passionate about the subject that we're not allowed to ask hard, tough questions.
Mhm.
And the one thing that we have to understand is a lot of people on that list just wanted some hard questions asked. Hard questions are okay. It's okay for Lou, he's a big boy, to be asked tough questions. And Lou will even tell you that himself.
Yeah.
I remember I had it on this show where Lou Elizondo said on this show, I am not a religious UFO deity. I don't like being held to the standards that many in UFO Twitter land had put me on. He was
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable with it. And when
Mm-hmm.
I brought that up in a conversation on UFO Twitter, I was completely chastised. Well, who gave you this information? I said, Elizondo. Take a listen to my interview with him.
Right. Well,
But
and the thing is it just to make a quick point to this comment. The thing is that the thing people have to remember is that my understanding is that the original list was actually produced by someone within Elizondo's camp as a list of people that they knew were adversarial entities, right? So the original list was almost a not really constructive, kind of constructive in a weird sort of way, more of a triage sort of thing, and so but done as an internal tool, right? And then that became so. There's a lot of people, for example, getting really upset about the Taliban thing on the side. And I get it. Like when I first saw it, I got upset too. But if you remember that this started out at some level as a comical list of people that hate Elizondo, the Taliban aren't huge fans of Elizondo. So
very
that was
true.
actually kind of
Very
that was
true.
kind of that was a funny thing. That wasn't actually meant to be a rub. That was actually a funny thing. So
Yeah.
that one
So
is not a big deal.
basically, I'm sure somebody meant that list in humor and in jest. It's going to fly around as per usual. But the thing that I don't like is there's good people on that list that are going to be, pinned and tied to it. And asking tough questions, and we're going to move on right after this, John. But asking tough questions does not consent to somebody being on a list
It's
of
the whole
hate
point.
groups. The whole point is
The whole
we
reason why you do this. Hard
we
question.
need to be able to ask tough questions to get tough questions answered. This isn't softball here. This is a topic. This isn't about Elizondo. This isn't about Mellon. This isn't even about the United States government. This is a subject that is going to affect 7.8 billion people on this planet. And however that information gets out, we need it out. We need the full story, not the half story or the quarter story.
And I will just add the last point that I will agree with people. If anyone ever says it around my presence, that we let it get too much about certain people. Okay. Now I'm not saying that I know what we could have done to stop it, because you did have people in very critical, special positions, and that's what happens. But I completely agree that it's several times through this whole thing, it has become way more about an individual and much less about what they were doing. And I understand why that would irritate people to no end. And it's something that we have to always combat against, because it's a human tendency.
Very true. Very good point. All right, John, let's move on in the unbiased UFO report that we have here. This is a little bit of a weird story, and I'm wondering if it could be about portals. What happened on the ski hills of California?
Well, so it wasn't the ski hills of California. This lovely individual who, and keep in mind that this was back in 2018, he went skiing in New York. And he's a firefighter. And somehow he got separated from his group. And he vanished. 70 people spent a long time and a lot of money looking for him. Nothing. 5 days later, he calls the police from Sacramento, California, 2,900 miles away, and has no idea how he got there. And has no identification on him, no wallet, nothing.
I know this. This gentleman was a firefighter out
Yes.
of the province of Ontario.
Yeah,
And,
he's a Canadian guy. Yep.
and he was gone for 5 days, and somehow he was able to get a hold of a cell phone and remember his wife's phone number after calling 911.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the update on this?
So this is the thing that I find very interesting, but also informative, because people need to understand that If you ever needed to learn the lesson of it's about the journey, not the destination, this is the topic, because there's very rarely any payout, right? The story is usually the fun part, because essentially it's been a couple years later, and fundamentally, no one has any clue what happened. The best guess that has been given is that he had that something happened to him while skiing in New York that resulted in a brain injury that resulted in amnesia for 5 days and the ability to get himself to Sacramento. And it appears that his wife accepted this and he's back home. But they're basically saying it was a combination of retrograde amnesia with memory loss events related to the blow to a head. I mean, and the thing is that, okay, 5 days. Could you get from New York to Sacramento in 5 days? Absolutely, right? But you'd be hitchhiking. So it seems like it wouldn't be hard to find somebody that's seen your face. You're going to show up in also the cameras. I don't know.
Well,
this is a really interesting one.
My
point is, I think there's evidence to support what you originally said, as crazy as what you said was.
Well, you know what? Here's the other thing about this case that a lot of people don't understand. He was still dressed in his ski suit in California and ski boots. He had no other clothing. He had no other dress other than his ski suit.
Hopefully they were good, like squishy boots, not really rigid ones, right?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? But I'm not saying it was a portal that shoved him there, because look, in 5 days, with a truck driver, when they're hauling butt, driving their maximum 13 hours a day or whatever they're allowed to drive, you can get across country. All right. And if somebody picked him up at the mountain and drove him someplace to a truck stop and wherever, I mean, we'll never know. Obviously, there's some sort of amnesia,
but it would have been a shorter ride for him to drive home. Canada.
Well, I agree with you. We don't know.
And they usually frown on it when you Canadians come down here and then just don't leave, right? They usually want to know how many days you're going to stay and, when you're going to go home. You guys ask the same thing about us.
I agree. I fully agree. But it's one of those weird stories that we will never really know.
But and it's a good one.
Finally, tonight, you got a little bit about Brian Bender. Is this the same that Bob McGuire was talking about?
Yeah, and I was trying to get together a proper differential between the two documents, because I was able to find 3 hits for the document late last evening, 2 last evening and 1 earlier today on the Wayback Machine. So I believe I'm going to be able to recover the original article, and then I'll be able to do a proper differential. But essentially, what it comes down to is there was this, it's still a very good article by Brian Bender, came out in Politico, and essentially what is being reported and was reported to me for the first time on your show not too long ago, which I believe it was Bob McGuire who said it, if I remember correctly. That essentially the original version of his article that was out this morning is gone, and it's been replaced with a much tempered down, much defanged, much detoothed, declawed sort of vanilla pudding sort of version, and no explanation for why that occurred.
Well, I'm sure Bender would have had his
creepy.
Yeah, I'm sure Bender would have had his hand slapped on something along those. Those lines.
Did you read the original article?
I never got a chance to.
Yeah, so I didn't either, but I can't imagine it was that aggressive. I mean, it's Brian Bender. I mean, come on. I don't know. It just seems weird to me. To me, what it sounds like he bumbled onto something.
Could be.
He bumbled onto something and he didn't even know it, and they freaked out. Or his management freaked out. Who knows?
I'm sure the editors may have got a phone call and said, you may want to tone this down a little bit so we don't get into trouble. Well, a lot of times what happens is all of a sudden the lawyers take another read at it, and they say, we may want to eliminate paragraph 2, paragraph 4, paragraph 9. All right, we may be in trouble there.
Otherwise, we're going to have to redefine the scope of exposure.
Exactly. Fedora Jon, thank you for another great outpouring of the Unbiased UFO Report. We'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.